What is socially acceptable in the US, that would be horrifying in the UK. Stores showing the price pre-tax. Here in the UK the price you see is the price you pay. I recently just found out about that thing in America, and I was so confused and shocked at the same time. Here it is to show you how much you are paying the government. We are a very different country in that way. I think it's almost certainly one of the reasons people in the US are so anti-tax. It just creates inconvenience. We see it here too, it's on the receipt. It's not being hidden from you. But why can't the price tag show both the pre-tax price and the final price then? The constant maths would stress me out so much. I'd be so nervous if I was buying multiple items that I would miscalculate and not have enough money. Sometimes they do show both. It tends to be with more expensive items or items that businesses are likely to buy. If a business is VAT registered they can claim the tax back, so it's good to have both prices on there. Gaps in bathroom stalls. This right here. WTF is that all about? IDK really? I've kinda thought to stop smoking and junk. Like you know which stall has someone smoking, or more recently vaping, in it? More likely it's cause it's cheaper and easier for one person to assemble. That's the case for most things around here. Strangers can see you taking a dump. I don't think we even have that in prisons over here. They could, but it's considered extremely impolite, and if anything most Americans have a high sense of politeness. If you call them out by saying, "Can I help you?" they'll usually stop and be a little embarrassed. But it doesn't happen often. Believe it or not, most people don't want to see other people dump. If you're looking to see if a stall is full, you look at the bottom for shoes. Generally you never go up to a stall unless you're intending on opening it, so the line forms by the sinks and farther from the stalls. Edit. Sorry if this doesn't make sense. I'm getting sleepy lol. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. Always horrified by the ads, both the content and the recurrence. Bloody hell, all your TV has like an ad a minute. I took my British boyfriend to a pro-American football game, and he was so confused by all the pauses. Had to explain that we were waiting around for the people at home to watch commercials. I told him once that British shows have so much less dialogue than American ones, and he brought up the addition of adverts here. There's more time for nuance when you don't have to hear about migraine meds and car insurance every 7 minutes. When my Brit friends were visiting, they were horrified when the waiter took their credit card to swipe back at the terminal. This made them really uncomfortable. Yeah, and then bring you the receipt to sign it. I'm in Europe and I haven't signed a credit card receipt in over a decade. Even my neighborhood farmer who does rounds in his van delivering produce to the neighbors carries a handheld card reader, and since the pandemic almost all of them are contactless. Unlock your phone, put it close to the reader, done, paid. I'm Canadian. I was at Disneyland a couple years ago and used my credit card's contactless pay system at one of their restaurants in the park because I noticed it had a little logo on the machine indicating it was possible. You know, the technology that has been standard for more than a decade. The person working that till had no clue what the happened when they suddenly noticed that the transaction had been recorded. They looked at me like I was from some other dimension. Despite working a till that had the capacity for contactless pay, that Disneyland employee had never seen anyone use it and didn't even know that their machine had that capability. That day, I brought the Tomorrowland magic to Disney. Up until a couple of years ago pretty much no US credit cards supported touchless terminals. It's this weird thing we are really behind on. Also, I went to a smallish city in Scotland, and when I landed I got on the bus and they took that contactless thing only. There were no terminals to get a ticket or anything with cash. I had no idea what it was, and had no way to pay. The guy let me ride into town for free, which was very sweet. Anything taking over an hour to get to being a short trip. There's an insane amount of Americans that have an hour or more as their daily commute. Used to have an hour and a half commute, woke up at 5:30 am to get ready, left my house at 6:30, got to work at 8, and got back home at 6 p.m. so I could be in bed by 9. I was always tired, and the weekends were only for errands and anything else that I had to put off during the week. Spent over $300 a week on gas, changed my oil once a month, and I managed to take my car from 70,000 miles to 95,000 in 4 months. Now I got a job 8 minutes away, and life is so much better. I live in a village in the UK 26 miles from London, and this is similar to a lot of people's daily commutes here. Small country, dense population equals road traffic, and I use trains. Don't get me started on those. I think it's more than someone who lives an hour away by car/train is considered to live in a substantially different area to you, whereas the US is so big that an hour isn't much. Yeah, I lived in Los Angeles for work before COVID, and if I went to the office on my day off it was a 20-minute drive. If I went during rush hour to or from work, was about 2 hours, if I was lucky. When somebody says you should come to their house sometime, actually going by their house sometime, you're specifying Brits. Because Americans say this so casually it has no meaning. I have an open invitation to 6 of my friends to come see my apartment sometime. Only one has ever taken me up on it. To be fair, when someone says we should hang out sometime, sometimes it means we should not hang out. I'm just being polite. So whenever someone invites me to come around I usually don't, unless it's very specific like come to my house at 11 am tomorrow. I was taught differently. If someone says that it's up to you to play it. If you don't want to see them, say sounds good or something non-committal. But if you reply with let's set a time, how about next? If they get out their calendar and check and do schedule, it's probably sincere. If they push off with I'll have to check my calendar and get back to ya. From that, if they don't get back to you soon, your likely answer is uninterested. Politicians mentioning religion when campaigning. Only a few years ago, that Tim Farron got raked over the coals when it came out he was quite religious, which implied he might be anti-gay marriage. Night and day compared with US politics. It haunted that entire general election for him. Everyone knew he was strictly religious, but he couldn't really defend himself, as politicians just don't talk about their religion. I remember multiple journalists asking if he thought being gay was a sin, and he just had to dodge every question. To be fair, that sounds like a question about his personal principles, rather than about the practices of the Church of England, and when a politician dodges questions about their personal principles, that's always a very bad sign. It would have taken him all of 1 second to say no. Sounds like the haunting was fully warranted then. I feel that was a real missed opportunity for him though. If he hadn't been so tepid, he could have responded, whatever my religion has to say in the matter is of zero importance. It's a question of civil liberties and the right to be with any partner you choose, or something to that effect. Boom. Homophobia worries gone. Images a capable modern statesman forged. Surely he knew that being evasive would go down badly, and if he truly believes gay marriage is a sin, and is unwilling to suspend his religious beliefs for a role in public office, then he shouldn't have been running in the first place. Sharing dorm rooms in college. Pretty much unheard of in the UK. I'm British and have been to university in both countries. When I discussed this topic with the Americans, they all assumed straight away it's because we're so prude. I think based on the assumption it was because we didn't want to have to change in front of another person, but that's also a British stereotype over there. I found that funny, as it's the opposite. A big reason why we don't share rooms is because we all want to have a lot of casual after nights out. Obviously Americans do this too, it's just so much more effort to get some privacy. So I saw this once in the UK. My Tinder date was on Erasmus and had a shared room with a super religious guy. And we were both guys, and I was the one who had traveled to see him. So after going to the pub we went back to his. We awkwardly sat in his room like so. Do we lock the door from the inside and leave the key in the lock? Chair blocking the door. In the end nothing happened, because we couldn't work out how to do it and ended up just watching stupid stuff on YouTube together and ended up getting on really well. He's been my best friend for 5 years thanks to the blocking of shared bedrooms. I have one that's the other way around. A girlfriend did that hands over the eyes surprise thing and presented me with a little Christmas tree decorated with candy cane. I said, "Oh, a dinky little Christmas tree." In America, dinky means worthless. In the UK it means small and cute. She cried. I had called my mother to back me up on the misunderstanding. Over here saying something is quite good means it's not bad. In the US it's closer to very good. I had a student from the UK say that a chart I made for a lecture was brilliant. It was a compliment, but if he had been American, it would have been a much bigger compliment. Especially in an academic context. When someone says, "Make yourself at home," actually making yourself at home. Wait, no one actually does that, right? People just sit on the couch and maybe grab a cushion. That's all. Right? If you are close friends or family, it's very literal in the US, at least here in the NE. No one does anything rude like put their feet up on a couch or table, but for the most part, it indicates a wide set of permissions. Usually, it's courteous to ask for the first few things to establish boundaries, but once you clear, let's say a drink, most people will just grab the second for themselves, and typically this is okay. Wait, what? It is rude to put your feet on the couch. Has it to do because I heard people leave their shoes on in the US? Because here in Switzerland I wouldn't look twice if people coming over make themselves comfy on my couch. But it's customary to leave your shoes at the front door. Many people even have a selection of guest slippers ready. Edit. Wow, I have never had so many comments. Sorry if I don't answer all of them. The shoe thing in the US is case by case. My parents allowed shoes in the house when we had wood floors. Most times we wore slippers inside, but when we moved to a place with carpet we no longer wore shoes. We'd allow shoes for guests on wood and tile floors downstairs, but you'd have to take them off upstairs. Huge portion sizes. Kids meal in U.S. is like a adult meal in UK. My observation, Brits drink like Americans eat. Americans eat a lot more and have bigger portions, but whole folks from the UK drink way more than your standard American. Hard to explain how much more. I remember drinking with Brits the first time. I was fresh out of college in my drinking prime. I reached the point where I normally hit the brakes and take it easy, and instead they just hit the gas. Americans are so confusing. They say about going for a drink after work and they literally mean one drink. And then they get up and leave. British people going for a drink after work, especially on a Thursday or Friday, means 5-8 drinks, leaving at closing time, having some disgusting food, and falling asleep on the bus/train before waking up at your stop. My British partner and I, American, were in London, running late to meet our friends. Just as we get to the tube station, I see our train has just pulled in. We across platform and I yell, "Hold the door." Someone does, we make the train. I don't see a problem. My partner, by contrast, is mortified. This was 4 to 5 years ago, and he is still mortified. Apparently we were meant to just let the train leave without us and wait for the next one. Try the in Vienna, the subway driver will personally insult you over the speakers. I almost missed a train in Denmark, outside Copenhagen in the countryside. I was fumbling/quickly trying to pick up my things/bag etc to board the train. The door almost closed on me, but in New York City, if the train door closes on you it just reopens, until there's nothing blocking it, it doesn't close hard either. The train attendant looked mortified and told me how absolutely so stupid I was. I was shocked by her response, and I definitely felt stupid, but didn't totally understand. Then I found out that the doors close hard and don't reopen, so the train just drives away with your body hanging halfway out, and you probably die. I'm originally from the UK. Have a son that loves Japanese stuff, so we went to a gun show that had people selling swords. Found a really nice katana for him to hang on his playroom wall. But that's a real moment when we are walking out of the show with his sword in scabbard on end by his side. Walked past a cop at entrance who nodded approval, nice sword. Then in the parking lot, past a lad, his agent, his dad, both carrying semi-automatics rifles on slings. Both nodded approval and respect to my boy with his sword. The whole show had hundreds of people walking around with guns and bags of ammo. Never felt anything but safe, but did think how this would be a tad out of place back home. Definitely out of place. One mate of mine bought a novelty umbrella with a sword handle and got stopped by armed police at the train station. My college went into lockdown for a few hours in 2015, 2012 because of just such an umbrella. Later that day I saw a shirt that read, "I survived the RIT umbrella massacre of 2015, 2012. High fructose corn syrup. That's because it has heavy government subsidies. Farmers get millions to grow corn with no market, so it can be converted to HFCS for cheap. Never understood this. The most heavily subsidized crop in the country is being used to make the most unhealthy of all foods. Can't we just pay them to grow something else? I'm sure it's not that simple, but why are we spending all this money just to make everyone unhealthy? Most corn goes to the cattle industry. Something like 90% of all corn produced is shipped to cattle farms. That probably has a big reason for it. I completely forgot about that. Came back from New Zealand. Went to a restaurant, sorta upscale. On the menu, grass-fed beef. My reaction: what else does beef eat? Most cattle lives off of corn and a little dried grass, and then if they are meat cows they finish them on hay and wheat to remove the yellow color from their fat to be more appealing for sale. Premium meat comes from cows raised in pasture, and those cows still get a little corn/wheat grain. My old pet dairy cow loved to eat macadamia nut cookies. The bakery in town gave me bags of them for her when they got too old to sell. As a Brit in the US, this is a fun one. Pharmaceutical adverts on the TV are still weird after me. The length and frequency of commercial breaks in general on TV is shocking. Low-hanging fruit, but anything relating to child beauty pageants just makes me feel physically sick. Here's a nice one. Taking 20+ minutes to help a complete stranger who is struggling with something. The amount of times a total stranger has stopped to assist me or someone I know. You really make my heart melt. Ninja Reddit because this blew up. 21 to drink alcohol, insane, and Americans' relationship with booze in general. You'll seem to never ever drink ever, only ever have one glass of wine/one beer, routinely get absolutely and there is no middle ground. I've never met so many people who straight up never drink booze as I have here. Is your nose itchy? Why not ask your doctor if itchathon is right for you? Side effects may include bleeding out the heart attacks, thoughts, homicidal thoughts, sudden desires for hope, thoughts about by cop, sudden unexpected death, itchy nose, feelings of doom leading to expected death, bleeding out of the bleeding out the nipples, ears rotting off, depression, itchy nose. Not from UK, but Australia. I feel like we are pretty interchangeable at times, culturally speaking, but tipping is weird. It's strange to pay on top of a service you've already paid for. Some places have a tip jar that you might sometimes put your loose change in, but that's the real extent of it. I find it bizarre when a company makes its employees rely on the generosity of others when they themselves aren't generous enough to pay a livable wage. Yes, I explained to my American BF that we rarely tip in my country too cause the bill that you pay includes service tax for the servers, 10%. Tipping is only if you think the server goes out of their way to deliver exemplary service. Even then, the servers are not offended if you don't tip. So whatever you pay in your bill guarantees them to have a livable wage by end of the month. That's awesome. I didn't know that. Shame America is barely figuring out how to pay living wages just in time for inflation to jump again. You would love it here. Go to a cafe and the meal and a coffee etc. is say $20. You just pay $20 and leave and it's completely normal. Unless the cafe is breaking the law wage-wise, they still get paid the same as say retail workers who don't get tips. I've learned from my British friends that you have to be very careful giving peace signs. If you have your hand facing a certain way, it's like in the UK basically, whereas in the US it doesn't matter which way it's facing really. Several years ago I sent them a picture with me doing an incorrect peace sign and they were appalled. Eater, the offensive version is where your palm is facing inwards. Eater again, my life goal of being on BuzzFeed has been achieved. Lol, Americans accidentally doing or not understanding that a British person is actually saying is very fun. As an American I learned this from Harry Potter. Mrs. Weasley threatens to jinx Ron's fingers together when he makes a rude gesture if she saw him do it again. The phrasing confused me, so I looked it up. All of these are super low hanging fruit. I'd say being very sociable with strangers. Most conversation I've seen down here in Cornwall is started when there's a car crash and people are gossiping about it, or you live in a small town/village and you know the people around you. Going to America and having someone strike up a conversation while I'm minding my own business or when I'm trying to go somewhere was strange for me. The stereotype is that an American will tell you their life story on a plane ride and then get up and never expect to see you again. Edit. Thanks for the helpful award. I'm glad this comment helped you. By the way, the best description I've heard of this phenomenon is from a book called The Dud Avocado, which describes Americans as having a softer exterior but a hard interior, unlike Europeans who have a thick skin, but once you break that it's juicy, I guess. So it's been a phenomenon for a while. Stranger conversations can be some of the best, most honest ones a person can have because you'll never see them again. Their advice will be honest, outside advice, and they have no reason to lie either. I don't typically partake, but at times they've happened organically and they are great when they work out right and both people are into it. Driving everywhere. In the UK it's perfectly normal to have your kid walk to school and walking to the shops to do your shopping. I think this one is mainly due to the distance between stores and school. I know plenty of people who live right up near the school and walk, even if it's a couple miles. I usually have to commute to my school an hour or so. When I was in California on business, the company was in 2 different buildings that were across the street from each other. One day I had to go to the other building. I had just walking when a colleague pulled up beside me, rolled down her window, and asked me if everything was okay. I explained where I was going, and she asked why I wasn't taking my car and did I want a ride. I'm like, no, thanks, it's literally right over there. She then said, but then you'll have to walk back, too. I was legit surprised. It was like a joke coming to life or something. In my home office, walking from one side of the building to the other was a longer walk than crossing this road to get to the other building. Bill Bryson, an American writer who lived a lot of his life in the UK, talks about this. How he'd be walking in his neighborhood, neighbors would pull over and insist on giving him a lift somewhere and then drive off shaking their heads like he was a madman. I don't know how common it actually is there, but going wild at the cinema during a hugely popular film like Avengers, Endgame, or a Star Wars film. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube of the audience reactions to various big franchise films, and I don't know how anybody lasts more than a few minutes in that room. When I saw The Force Awakens, like 2 people half-heartedly cheered when the title screen came up, and then someone immediately told them to shut up. Captain America picking up Thor's hammer got a resounding ahoo in the cinema. It was the first time I'd heard anything like it in a British cinema, but still didn't cover the sound of the film. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.